Hi. So this is Jen with Spectre Baby USA. I am the senior IBCLC with Spectre Baby USA, and we are so excited that you are here with us today. Now, one little tidbit, if you have not heard or seen, we are doing an amazing giveaway today. An amazing giveaway to a random winner. So there is no need to be, worried too much about that. But we would love to see as much engagement as possible today. So again, welcome to the live question and answer this Wednesday, February the 6th. My name is Jen, and I am the IBCLC here with Spectre Baby USA. I love all the waves and the hearts and the smiles. So we are looking for you to not only be engaged during this live question and answer, because of course it is so important that we want to be able to be here to support our moms and our families. So stay tuned to see who the random winner is going to be for our Spectra S9 Plus. So if you have not seen a 9 Plus before, let me show you how awesome it is. It is nice and portable and small, and it does allow for up to 2 hours of pumping wirelessly. So it does have the internal battery. I personally use it whenever I am pumping in the car because it fits right into the cup holder. It is nice and compact, and it's just amazing. So a lot of our moms really, really love this. It can be a single or double pump, and it again has that internal battery. So stay tuned and make sure that you're asking the questions that you have on your mind, and we're going to jump right into this topic. But of course, we want all of our mommies to really be engaged, all of our families to be engaged. So don't be shy, because we're going to get to your questions. If we can't get to your question today during the live, of course, please know that we're always here for you. On Instagram and on Facebook, thank you for joining us again during this live we're going to have a live giveaway. So stay tuned to that for us picking a random winner. So, all right. So I'll put that little plug away there. And today, we want to be talking about a blog that's going to be posted live at 1 o'clock. So the blog is about one of our Spectre moms and the actual bottle nipple that she chose when she returned to work for her baby. Now, this is one of those topics that a lot of moms want to know about and need to talk about, right? Because a lot of us have to return to work and or school when we're away from baby. So we have one question is, how do we enter to win? Well, how you enter to win is just be here on this live, engage or ask any questions that you might have, and a random winner will be picked at the end, okay? So there's nothing special that you need to be doing other than just being here and being your amazing selves, okay? So again, what we're going to be talking about today is what is the right bottle nipple and bottle flow for baby when we're away from baby. So now I know that there are some moms out there that are exclusive pumpers, such as myself. And of course, I'm exclusive pumping for a donation. But we do have some exclusive pumping moms that are probably like, don't forget about me, because I'm exclusive pumping and having to give baby the bottle for every feeding. And that's okay. That's wonderful. We are here for those mommies also, right? Because pumping is breastfeeding. Yes, I really want to emphasize that. Now let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we choose the nipple that we need to be using when we're away from baby. So what is that in terms of the flow? Do I need to go from a slow flow nipple to a faster flow nipple when baby is older? How do I really know that it's the right bottle flow nipple? There's so many questions that surround that. So I want this to be fun and engaging, yes. So of course I'm going to get to your questions. Please don't worry about that. But let's start out with something that's going to be a little bit fun, okay? We're going to switch it up a little bit today. So I'm going to ask a question, true or false, and I want you guys to guess whether it is actually a true or false statement, okay? So let's get started. the first question ties into our blog that we have today about a Spectre mommy, and it's going to be live at 1 o'clock. And so, yes, I love all the mommies chiming in. They're saying, oh, I'm so excited. The S9 is so small. Yes. Okay, so let's get to some exciting questions, okay? So the first question, and again, this is going to be true or false. A preemie nipple is the best nipple to be used in terms of flow preference for baby, if not all babies, because it is the slowest flow nipple. All right? So true or false, mommies? What do you think? Is the preemie nipple the best nipple to be using because it is the slowest flow nipple for baby? True or false? Okay, so I see a false on Instagram. Hi, I see a true. Okay, so what about our mommies on Facebook? What do you think? And I love these mommies that are saying exclusive pumping. Okay, so I see a lot of true and I see some falses. So what's the answer? The answer is false, okay? So let's talk about this. So of course there are going to be situations where baby is born at a younger gestation. There's going to be babies that are born, in the NICU situation. There's so many different variables. And of course, all of us mommies and all of our babies are very unique and different. But I want to discuss why the research has shown that using that preemie nipple throughout the lifespan of whenever we're away from baby, or exclusive pumping mommies that are giving the milk in the bottle to baby, may not be the best option. Now, why? All right, let's talk about that. Think about when you're drinking a milkshake, okay, and it's a really thick milkshake. What you need to be looking at is how our cheeks dimple in. So if baby is really having to work really, really hard to get that milk at that preemie nipple, that's something that may not be the best flow for baby, all right? That's actually hindering their intraoral pressure. It could be changing their actual suck pattern. In addition to that, we want to make sure that baby is not expending too many calories versus what they're intaking. Okay, so that's why that statement would be false. All right, so I know a lot of mommies are going, oh my goodness, that's crazy, because a lot of times we think the slowest flow nipple is going to be best, right? Because a lot of times babies can overeat when they're being offered the milk in the bottle, because it's a lot different of a suck versus at breast. But that does not mean that the preemie flow nipple is going to be best. So again, we have an amazing blog by one of our Spectre moms that returned to work and offered that particular nipple flow type. And so that blog will be live. So that will be live at 1 o'clock. So again, let's go to the next question, okay? And I promise we're going to get to your questions here. Let me jump back over because it's interesting to see what some of our mommies are saying over here. All right, so wouldn't finding the right nipple depend on the mother's nipple? So that's a really good question. Obviously there's a lot of, every mom is unique and every mom is different. And that's what's so awesome and amazing about life, right? If we were all the same, it would be pretty boring. So choosing a bottle nipple is very unique to the mother and to the baby. There are some, really great different types of nipples. Our actual bottle nipple that comes with your particular pump is a slow flow nipple and is ergonomically good for babies that are offered the bottle away from mom. Now, with that being said, there's a lot of moms out there that say, okay, I've tried that and I really like to look into all these other different types. But the long and short answer of that would be is that no research has really shown us that there is one particular nipple that's better than another per se, and it does not necessarily correspond to the type of nipple that a mom has. Because there are some moms that have really much smaller nipples, and then there's some moms that have these very bolus type nipples. But that does not mean that when the baby is actually nursing at breast, that is necessarily going to impact what type of nipple is chosen. So we want to be able to provide to our moms and our families some evidence-based information. And when really looking at the newest research for this topic today, I was a little surprised by that also. But the studies really don't show that that really impacts the type of nipple that you choose. Okay, so I appreciate that question. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so just found out I'm pregnant with number 3 and can't wait to pump and breastfeed. Awesome. All right, so let's look and see what other questions we have here. I love to see these mommies. I love the engagements today. It's wonderful. I love it. I love it. I love to see these explosive pumping mommies. You mommies that are joining us, maybe even on your lunch break and you're pumping at the same time. That's amazing. That's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, so let's look and see what questions you have. I love how mommies are saying true and false for that question that we talked about again. The question is that, would you need to be using a preemie nipple for the lifespan of providing baby your express breast milk when you're away? And the answer was false, because especially as the baby gets more efficient with sucking, their sucking reflex and their enteral pressure and all the muscles within their mouth begins to actually develop even more so. So we need to be able to accommodate that also. Okay, so at what age do you need to switch to a faster flow? Now that's a wonderful question. And actually what happens is that there are a lot of lactation consultants and a lot of research out there is not only just talking about offering a slow flow nipple, but we're going to get into when you need to know when switching to a faster flow. So one thing to look at is when a baby is not only nursing at breast, or taking expressed breast milk from the bottle, you want to observe baby because it's always very individualized, okay? So let's talk about how you know when to switch to that faster flow. Okay, so one of those ways to do so would be look at a baby's suck and swallow pattern. You want to notice that baby is doing a suck, suck, swallow. And that's really important. If that baby is going suck, swallow, suck, swallow, suck, swallow, that's really fast, and that nipple flow is too fast for baby. Okay, so you really want to watch how baby is responding to the nipple that you've chosen. And so that's really important. There's not necessarily one set age by which that you have to say, okay, this is that point where baby needs to go to a slower flow or a faster flow nipple. What's really important is looking at what's going to be the best situation for your particular baby. And one thing that I really want to go over today is what's called paced bottle feeding, because that's really important also. But I want to jump into another fun question. Let me go over to Instagram and make sure I'm not missing any of you with your questions, because I love to have these questions that mommies are asking, and I really don't want you to feel like that we're not answering you. But I also want to put in that if there is a question that we so happen to miss today, if you feel like that you're not getting the support that you need, you have some other alternate question. If you're on Instagram, direct message us. If you're on Facebook, you can comment on this thread. And or we also have an amazing team of IBCLC's lactation consultants here with Spectra Baby USA, and we want to be here to support you in any way that we can. So you can go to our Facebook page of the Spectra Certified IBCLC Facebook page, and you can actually private message us there your questions that you have, no matter what they are, and we're going to be here to support you. And of course, we really want to make sure that you're getting all the support that you can have, okay? So before I go to that next interesting question there, okay, so I appreciate the fact that these mommies are saying the explanation is helpful. So that's wonderful. I love to hear that, because if it's not helpful, let me know, keep me accountable, but again, reach out to us, it will be helpful. Okay, so My baby is 4 months old and has only latched maybe a handful of times. Do you think he can still learn to take the breast? Exclusively pumping mommy here. So that's a wonderful, wonderful question. So throughout the about 15 years or so of being a lactation consultant, I've actually seen babies that were 3-4 months old that whether they were adopted breastfeeding or mom was exclusively breastfeeding, there always is that ability per se. Now, of course, every mom and different baby are different, that they can actually transition from bottle to breast. There's wonderful tools out there, such as nipple shields that help for babies to transition from bottle to breast. But one of the biggest things that I would recommend is to always work with an experienced lactation consultant, because having that assistance in person is always really important versus just virtual assistance. Virtual assistance can be helpful in a lot of manners, and we are always here for you. But being with a lactation consultant, even other amazing breastfeeding support individuals out there like breastfeeding educators, doulas, midwives, lactation counselors, there's so many different professionals out there that can provide that hands-on assistance, okay? But sometimes if it's a little bit more advanced, that lactation consultant that might have more experience in varied different aspects can be the best person to assist you with that. But I really appreciate that question. So when should we introduce a bottle? Oh, I love that question, Kelsey, over here on Facebook. So we're going to go to that some next questions here, and we might even answer some of these questions that you have. Because one mommy over here, Whitney on Facebook, says, is it better if you're nursing? It's better if you are nursing though, right? A slow flow nipple along with pace feeding. So Whitney, that's a really good question. And yes, we do want to make sure that a slower flow nipple, if you are nursing and if you're not nursing, is something that you introduce to baby first. Again, we really want to make sure that you're following what baby's needs are in their suck pattern. Okay, we talked about baby needs to be a suck, suck, swallow. If baby is doing suck, swallow, suck, swallow, suck, swallow, that might be too fast for baby. Okay, you really want to make sure that you're offering at a good pace and that baby is able to regulate their intake. So let's go to the next question. I love to see all these questions that are flooding in. I love the engagement that we're having this week. Again, keep engaging, keep asking questions. If we simply cannot get to your specific question, hopefully it will be answered in these fun little true and false questions we have. If it's not, of course, I'm trying to follow along with your questions that you have here. But, as humans and individuals, sometimes we can't get to all of them, but we try our best, I promise, moms. All right, so there is not an ideal time to introduce a bottle to a breastfed baby. So again, we are here to support our exclusive pumping mommies, but this question might be a little bit more towards our mommies that are pumping and nursing like they're going back to school and or work, okay? So true or false, there is not an ideal time to introduce a bottle to a breastfed baby. And go. True or false? Let's go over here to, I love Instagram and Facebook moms and families engaging. Okay, so true or false, there is not an ideal time to introduce a bottle to a breastfed baby. Okay, I see a false, I see a true, I see a false. All right. So true, okay, all right. I love to see this, amazing. Keep going, keep going. All right, I see true, false, false. All right, are you ready for the answer? All right, so the answer is false. All right, this answer, I had to research a lot to get this answer because it could be true and or false, but the most recent studies are indicating that it could be false. Now, I will say that based on experience and some of the studies that are out there, that some moms can be very successful with offering the bottle at any time during their nursing experience. But research is showing us that the best time to introduce the bottle to the breastfed baby is going to be between 2 and 4 weeks old. Now, that is based on the assumption that mom is going back to work or school at about 6 weeks postpartum. But the other part of that is physiologically with the baby, that can be the best time after mom's milk supply is regulated, because you do want to follow that also. You want mom to have a good established milk supply. But you also want to provide it to baby when it's not too far along, where there's going to be a lot of time where baby is very, very resistant. Because there are, let's be honest here, and I'm sure a lot of these mommies that are on here and families that are on here are saying, okay, it's really difficult to get my baby to take the bottle or some other manner by which that they're feeding baby. But today we are kind of more or less focusing on introducing that bottle because that's a reality, right? Is that us mommies that have to go back to work or school, you know, there is going to be that introduction, especially if they're in the childcare setting or with another care provider. So the best, based on the most recent research, is the best time would be between the ages of 2 and 4 weeks old. So let's talk about some tips that would be helpful in providing that bottle to the baby. So some of the tips would be is that at least once a week to offer the bottle to baby, especially if you're going to be returning to work at 6 weeks postpartum. You want to offer the bottle when baby is not so hungry that they're not willing to try anything new. Okay, so there are some questions where mommies say, I didn't pump enough to practice with bottles until much later, maybe 9 weeks. And that's okay. Every mom and baby is very different. And that's important to keep in mind too, okay? Just because these studies and research show, you know, what the majority of things, you know, what type of standard that we can look at in terms of the general population. Again, there's no cookie cutter answer. There's no cookie cutter situation because every mom and baby are different. Okay, so there's some mommies that can take 6 months off work, but the majority of us have about, you know, the 4 to 6 weeks postpartum before we return to work with baby. Now, I do want to make sure that I'm getting to some of these questions. I'm going to jump over to Facebook. Let's see. Let's see here. It says, I'm an exclusive pumper because baby won't latch. How do I tell when I've pumped enough to empty? I feel like no matter how long that I pump, there's still drops of milk coming out. So, you know, there's not necessarily one particular set time frame to be able to be pumping to empty our breast per se. I will say a fun little fact there. Our breasts are never truly completely empty. All right. So, but we do want to notice that there is expressing as much milk as we can to keep that supply and production up, because whatever we're removing is what we produce. Okay, so that's extremely important to keep in mind. Now, again, hands-on expression is really, really important. Massaging before you pump, while you're pumping, and after you pump, because that's so important to be able to have that hands-on stimulation while you're pumping, and that's extremely important. And even going back to that evidence-based information, studies, and a lot of them at that show that when we have hands-on pumping, that we're able to pump 30% more than if we did not have that hands-on pumping experience. So that's really important, okay? So again, we talked about if there's an ideal time to introduce the bottle to a breastfed baby. And so a lot of the most recent research is showing about between that 2 and 4 week time frame. Some tips would be at least once a week prior to returning to work, introducing that bottle when baby is not so hungry that he or she is not willing to take the bottle. Okay. We also talked about on our live question and answer last week, we talked about alternative feeding methods. And that's important that I would like to discuss also. That there are options such as cup feeding and syringe feeding to baby, especially when they're much younger. There also is the ability to use what's called an SNS, where you can put, if you are supplementing, for example, that you can use an SNS, which actually hangs here, and the tubings go directly down to the nipple so that baby can be getting that supplemental nutrition while they're feeding at breast. But when we are away from baby is more or less what we're focusing on today. Okay, so let's go to the next question here. True or false? The research tells us that the exclusively breastfed baby, whether you are exclusively pumping or whether you are nursing at breast, okay, I want to be very inclusive here because pumping is breastfeeding mommies and daddies, families, all right? So that the average intake is 25 ounces in a 24-hour period. So that's about 750 mLs. And this is a statement that can be looked at for ages 1 month to 6 months. So I'm going to repeat that. At ages 1 month to 6 months old, the studies show us that the average intake of baby is 25 ounces within a 24-hour period. Is that true or is that false? So 1 month to 6 months is what we're looking at. So mommies, families, what do you think? What do you think? Is that true or false? Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of truths. I'm seeing a lot of truths. What else? Keep going, moms. Keep going, families. I love how we have a comment here in between there about hands-on pumping and massaging, and you're absolutely right. It's very, very helpful. Okay, so it depends. Sure. Okay, so we have a mommy, Miranda, over here on Instagram, that she says she's only producing about 12 to 14 ounces. And again, you know, we are all very unique and there's a lot of variations that can be there. If you want to look into that further, you can direct message us on Instagram and let's talk about that also. But one of the biggest reasons why moms stop pumping or stop nursing is because they feel like that they are not producing enough. And that's why I feel like this question is so important. So, excuse me. So we really want to look at this, okay? Because mommies think we've hit 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. Let's look at this and see if it's true or false. All right. Okay, so I see a lot of truths. I see a lot of truths. I see a lot of truths, but okay, so, and the answer is true. Okay, so the research shows us that babies will be ingesting an average of 25 ounces. So nutritionally speaking, babies need approximately that 25 ounces. So it is going to vary. Some, you know, between 19 ounces, 30 ounces within a 24-hour period. But let's say I really want to drive home that babies can often overeat with bottle feeding. And there are reasons, and I want to go through some PACE bottle feeding methods. But let's talk about, nutritionally speaking, that babies do only need about 19 to 30 ounces in a 24-hour period, which the average, based on research, shows us 25 ounces. Okay, so you, all mommies and families that said true, you are right. But again, there's going to be those situations that are the exception, and you are absolutely right. So how do you know how much to give baby at one particular feeding while you're away? If you want to look at how many times baby is eating, and you want to take about that 25 ounces and divide it by the number of times baby is eating in a 24-hour period while you're away from baby, okay? So if you have 8 feedings per day, you take 25 ounces divided by 8 feedings per day, and you have about 3.1 ounces. So that's a good little rule of thumb that you can think of. And it is, you know, some moms think, okay, I have to be giving a bottle of 5 ounces, 6 ounces, 8 ounces as baby gets older. But keeping in mind, and some solace there, that, you know, nutritionally speaking, that baby needs the same amount from 1 month to 6 months of age. And as complementary foods are offered at that 6-month age point, does not mean that you need to be offering them a bigger bottle of expressed breast milk. So I hope that that provides some solace to our mommies, that that doesn't mean that you need to be filling up this really huge bottle of milk, okay? So Excuse me. So I have a question over here on Facebook that says, exclusively pumping for a 2-month-old. How many times a day should I be shooting to pump? Wonderful question. So when baby is eating is when you really need to be focusing on pumping. So babies need to be eating between 8 to 12 times a day. And so as long as that time is a time when babies should be eating, you really need to be pumping. So really shooting for 8 to 12 times in a 24-hour period to be expressing your milk would be really important. So when you're away from baby, you should be really looking at, okay, how can I develop a good pumping schedule to match when baby would normally need to be eating? Because whatever is removed is what we produce. And so that's really important to do so. Okay, so we have another comment over here on Instagram, trying to jump between the two here. The biggest bottle my daughter has ever had was maybe 5.1 ounces around 6 months, never had any bigger. And that's awesome. And again, you have to look at, you know, how many times a day is baby eating, taking about that average 25 ounces, and again, upwards of 30. So you got to be individual. But looking at that average of the 25 and dividing it by the number of times per day that baby is eating helps give you a good rule of thumb as to how much needs to be provided at each feeding session. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay, so let's look over here. We have Stephanie that says, I find standing in a hot shower gets my flow going great. And that is a good point. So a lot of times heat can help with the letdown, and that can be a very helpful tool. But for those of us mommies that may not have access to the heat or to a hot shower after every time, that massage and hands-on expression can be very helpful. Okay, so we have Erin that says, I'm 10 weeks postpartum and I pump 8 times a day. And that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So 8 to 12 times a day is really what you should be shooting for. So at 8 times a day is a wonderful time frame. I will say, as an exclusively pumping mom, there are some days where if I get in 7 pumping sessions with having 4 other children, I still give myself a pat on the back, I will have to say, because it is, you know, a lot of effort, and sometimes in that 24-hour period, it's difficult to get in all those pumpings, but really shooting for that 8 to 12 times a day would be really helpful. And keeping in mind whenever baby's eating is when you need to be pumping, okay, to express and match what baby is needing. All right, so let's go down here. I pump every 2 to 3 hours, usually a total of 8 times a minimum, and that's wonderful. That is wonderful, absolutely, absolutely. So will the amount that they need in a 24-hour period increase or decrease with age and the start of solids? So that's a great question. That's a great question. And usually it is decreased. And the reason why is because that they're getting the additional amounts of solids to complement, but also the composition of our milk changes with the needs of baby. And so a lot of studies show that the actual fat intake is higher past that 6 months because that, you know, there's a lower quantity of milk, and or the composition matches whatever baby needs at that age. So usually based on the age of baby, there might need to be a little bit less that is needed for baby around that 6-month point. But having concerns, because a lot of moms, once they get past that 6 months, they feel like that they need to have bigger bottles of milk to provide, and then they stop nursing and or pumping. And it is really important to realize that a lot of times that self-doubt can self-sabotage you if your breastfeeding or pumping goals is to be past a certain point. But we're here to support you no matter what your breastfeeding or pumping goals are. So please know that just because you want to pump or nurse for a month, a week, 6 months, a year, please know that that's amazing, and we're here to support you no matter what. Okay, so what if I suspect baby isn't pacing even after you explain it? So that's a really hard situation. Thank you, Ash Michelle on Instagram for asking that. You know, it's one of those things where we can really be hopeful that our child care providers are pace feeding. So let's talk about that. whenever we offer a express breast milk to baby, we want to explain that baby should be in an upright position, okay? Never lay a baby flat to offer the milk. You want baby to be in an upright position and ideally be able to have baby's eyes facing the care provider, because that's really important for that visual acuity and development, okay? You also want to emphasize to switch sides. Okay, so offering that express breast milk in the bottle, and you want the bottle here once baby is in that upright position. Paste bottle feeding. Now, based on the bottle that you're using, I'm using here our Spectra bottle. I will say I love these types of bottles, but of course I'm a little biased, right? It is a slow flow nipple. So you do want the bottle to be horizontal. Now, a lot of moms and childcare providers are thinking, okay, so what about air, Jen? Well, think about this. They're able to self-regulate their intake, and when the milk is horizontal, meaning that the milk does not need to have all of that milk filling that nipple. That's really important to realize, is that when you have the nipple here and the milk is only in that bottom portion of the nipple, the baby is able to self-regulate their intake. Now, you do want to allow even tickling the nose or that upper lip and allowing baby to regulate when they're taking in that nipple. So instead of pushing that nipple into baby's mouth, that they're able to say, okay, I need that, I want that milk, I need that milk. And following baby's lead is really, really important. So allowing maybe that 10 to 20 suck swallow combination that we talked about, taking the bottle away, even frequently burping can be very helpful. Some mommies like to sit baby up on their lap and burp this way, and that's wonderful too. I love Kelly over here on Instagram going, it's the best bottle, and that's great, that's great. So, you know, you want to be able to allowing that paced bottle feeding, letting baby self-regulate the feeding. And so that's really important. So to answer your question, how do you go about you know, if the child care provider is not following what you've instructed them to do, and that's really difficult. And that's often when moms are saying, I have to provide more and more and more to that caregiver because they're not paced bottle feeding. And that's often where the baby is ingesting more than they actually nutritionally need. And that's a difficult situation. But a lot of times bringing in your bottles that are self-labeled for the care provider in a smaller quantity and saying, this is what my baby needs and this is what I want you to be following, and teaching over and over if you need to how that paced feeding, so having the bottle horizontally, following the baby's lead, allowing for that bottle to be taken away. Think about it this way, okay? When we are having lunch with friends, and we're talking and we're socializing, don't you eat less than when you're so hungry that you're devouring your food, right? And then all of a sudden you realize, oh man, I am over full, I am overstuffed. Well, a lot of times that's what happens to babies, okay? And over time, their stomach starts to expand to the point where the care providers feel like that they have to be providing more milk at the time. But oftentimes babies are so overfull that that's what leads to colicky symptoms, gas, spitting up, etc., because they're overeating. So think about it like that also, is that explaining to that care provider and saying, you know, it's really important to allow my baby to self-regulate their intake. And what I mean by that is them telling us how much that they actually need per feeding is really, really important, okay? So again, allowing that baby to self-regulate. So this goes to our next question. True or false? Baby should not be in an upright position when being fed a bottle of breast milk. So this goes to what we just discussed. I'm going to put my little bear down. Again, the question is true or false? Babies should not be in an upright position when being offered a bottle of breast milk. So it goes right to what we just talked about. I'm excited to see what our mommies are saying here. False, false. I love to see this. Okay, who thinks true? All right, I see mommies on Instagram and Facebook saying false. Let's go back over here. I love this interaction. I love to see how many mommies and families are here engaging. This is so exciting. All right, so again, baby should not be in an upright position when being fed a bottle of breast milk. True or false? Yay! I love it. So false. That is absolutely correct. Okay. So again, you want baby to be in that upright position. I really encourage you moms and families to research paced bottle feeding even more so, because going through all the steps and recommendations would be pretty difficult to do in the time frame that we have here with all the different topics that we're going through. But again, the biggest thing is an upright position, allowing for that bottle to be horizontal. Do not allow the bottle to be up like this or baby to be laying flat, allowing baby to self-regulate their own intake. In other words, follow their suck-swallow pattern. Frequent burping can be helpful. And think about what we talked about, right? When you're with friends and you are talking and you're eating and then you realize, oh, I'm full. But if you eat really fast and you consume so fast, that's often where you feel very extended, right? You're so overfull that that's uncomfortable. Okay, so what if baby doesn't finish the bottle? Can you save it for a couple hours? You know, there is some controversy over this, and a lot of moms and families may or may not practice the same type of actions with this, but it is really important to keep in mind that once the baby's saliva is combined with the breast milk, you know, there is some concern about utilizing that milk after that point. So the best practice would be is to, again, look at that 25 ounces, divide that, it's the average intake, divide it by the number of times per day that the baby would be feeding, and that's the amount of food or milk, excuse me, that you would need in that collection bottle per feeding. And that will help minimize how much milk is wasted. Because if any of us pumping mommies, exclusive pumping, because exclusive pumping is breastfeeding too, right? So exclusively pumping or pumping and nursing and providing that milk while we're away, it's really important to look at the quantity that we offer so that we're not wasting those precious milk. Every drop is precious, right? All right, so any advice for increasing supply at 6 months postpartum? Or for introducing formula to supplement. So again, Rachel on Facebook is really looking at and looking at our expectations of how much we should be pumping and offering, and really look at that realistically. So my question would be is that why is it felt that you need to be supplementing? Looking at how much nutritionally the baby actually is needing, and if supplementation is actually warranted. Now, of course, there's going to be situations where we do need to look at supplementation, and baby being fed needs to be the #1 priority, obviously. But looking at that realistically and seeing, okay, how much does baby actually need to be eating? How much intake does baby actually need? Because a lot of times it's extremely comforting to realize that you are doing, not only are you doing no matter what, the best that you can be doing, yes, and baby and mom are all different, but realizing that the same amount of intake from 1 month to 6 months, the average is 25 ounces that's needed. Of course, that can vary between 19 and 30 ounces. However, that average of 25 ounces is the same at 1 month to 6 months, and 6 months to 12 months is the same or less. So it does not mean at 6 months that you're needing to provide more. But again, hands-on pumping, expressing when we're away from baby, whenever baby would be eating, and really ensuring that we're removing and stimulating our breast is going to be the #1 way to really look at increasing our supply and really making sure that baby is getting what they need. Okay, but I certainly appreciate that question because that is absolutely really important. One thing I really also want to talk about is never providing cereal in baby's bottle. Okay, so there's no need to be mixing baby or infant cereal in a bottle. There is no research that shows that that is needed or warranted. It actually can attribute to baby gaining more weight they need. A lot of studies have shown that it can lead to obesity in children, and it actually is something that should not be utilized, even more so because the research shows that we really should be exclusively providing milk to baby, whether it's artificial breast milk or whether it is, or artificial baby milk, I should say, excuse me, or whether it is milk that is expressed from mom. Within that 6-month period, that really needs to be exclusively what they are given, and providing or cutting that nipple on the bottle or adding baby cereal is actually something that's not the best option to be given. Okay. So we have one mom over here on Instagram that's saying my pediatrician recommends cereal around 4 months. And there are some, such as the Academy of Family Physicians and Academy of Pediatrics, that are saying between 4 and 6 months to offering solids. And, you know, that's not something that you got to look at the baby individually. The World Health Organization is still emphasizing exclusive breastfeeding, or exclusively if the breast milk is not available, that artificial baby milk being provided within that 6-month period is really important, because that's, you know, talking about so much other than that. The baby's digestive system really isn't ready for too much to be introduced outside of that. Okay, but there's so much that we could discuss here, and I know I love to see questions here. Okay, so, you know, we have some mommies on Instagram saying my baby's pediatrician has told me that we need to start solids around 4 months, and we're a little iffy on this. So I would really encourage, and I always do, whether it's, you know, with our moms and our clients that we talk about, our families, do your own research also, and do what you feel is best for your baby and for your family. Again, every mom and baby is very different. Okay. So we have Whitney over here on Facebook that says, I'm on well water. How long do I need to sterilize my bottles and parts? And that's a good question. You know, sterilizing your bottles and your parts, of course, never sterilizing the tubing, because as a closed system pump, you don't need to be washing or sterilizing the tubing. But 3 to 5 minutes is what we recommend for boiling and sterilizing. Another option that you could be looking at outside of the well water situation would be utilizing that sterilization bag, but making sure that you have approximately 2 ounces of water, because that's what is recommended to ensure that your parts don't warp. And you'll notice on that microwave sterilization bag, because we get that question a lot, that it says adding 2 ounces of water so that you're not compromising your pumping parts. Okay, so that's really important. So Sarah on Facebook says, what about dream feeding? And that's something that's a good question. You know, offering the express breast milk during a time when baby is not overly hungry, or when baby is a little bit between that sleep and awake period, is the most ideal time to be offering or introducing that express breast milk in a bottle, because baby is not so resistant and or is so overly hungry where the baby is going to be like, no way. But again, introducing it at about once a week before we go back to work. So we have a question over here on Instagram that says, when you say artificial baby milk, are you referring to formula? Yes. Yes. So sorry, as the, lactation consultant, I'm sure that within that field, that's what we refer to it. So yes, that's what I'm indicating. So ideally providing exclusive breast milk, whether it is expressed from mom, a milk bank, that's the ideal aspect, but we do know that there are times when it's really, really important that the baby is fed, number one. So, if artificial baby milk is what is chosen to supplement and are, being fed, is that it is properly it is properly prepared. That's really important. And I would encourage you to research to ensure that that is being properly prepared for baby. But when I say artificial baby milk, yes, that's what I'm referring to. All right. All right, so let's go over here. Is it safe to store pumping parts in the fridge between pumping uses in one day to avoid constantly washing parts? So Rachel from Facebook, I love that question. I will say that as the exclusive pumping mom, I put the parts and the pieces in a wet bag. Now, of course, that does not mean that you have to be doing that with your backflow protectors and or your tubing. That is not necessary as a closed system pump. There's nothing that's going to be passed between from what you're pumping into the motor and back out. So that's really reassuring. But I do use a wet bag to store my flanges, my collection bottles, and my duckbill valves. I put it in a wet bag, I put it in the fridge, and at the end of the day, I wash all my parts. But I would encourage you to look at what's called the CDC guidelines for sterilization of pumping parts, taking care of your pump, and then also making sure that you're washing your pumping parts appropriately, because it is really important that you provide the most sterile type of environment when you're pumping your breast milk for baby. Okay, so if we have a question over here on Instagram that says, if my flow is so fast that my baby coughs and I give a slow flow nipple with bottles, will she start to prefer the bottle? So that's a great question, and I would love and welcome you to direct message us on Instagram. And again, on Facebook, you can private message us. Private messaging, whether or commenting on this thread, and I promise you we'll try to get as many questions answered as possible. I love the engagement. Unfortunately, we are restricted to a certain time frame, so sometimes getting to all your questions, I hope you don't get upset or feel ignored, because we really do try to answer all your questions. But if we can't do so live, we will get to them along the way today. Okay, so that's a great question. And one thing that you can look at is a lot of times it's an overactive letdown and or an oversupply. So looking at varied nursing positions can be very helpful while you're nursing, such as a side-lying position, nursing in that side-lying position, what's called laid back nursing. So scooting your hiney a little bit more so and leaning back. And offering the breast this way, that can also be very helpful, because what actually helps is baby to regulate a little bit more on that intake. And that's usually what occurs. Now, your question is, if I offer a slow flow nipple with the bottle and I have that fast letdown, will the baby start to prefer the bottle? Now, every baby and mother is very different, and I can appreciate and understand your question. But usually the preference occurs when it's overly offered, but because there's so much more to the nursing relationship than just the food. Okay, baby was inside you for 9-10 months, and you are mommy, you are comfort. So baby is always going to want to hear and feel your skin, that human touch. Even our exclusively pumping mommies, that goes for you too, because you're mommy, right? They want to feel your heartbeat. They want to hear your heartbeat. They want that human connection. They want that comfort. So that's why when introducing the bottle, oftentimes it needs to be somebody other than mommy, so that baby is not saying, I want the real thing. So that's really important. Okay, so I love that question. I love that question. All right, so I have another true or false question, because we are getting down to the end of this time frame, and we do want to announce live our winner of the Spectra S9. Again, during our live today, we're going to be offering the Spectra S9 as the giveaway. So I know you guys are all excited. So this will be a true or false question to kind of go over what we've been talking about. True or false? It's best to start the feeding by tickling baby's mouth or the tip of the nipple to get baby to draw in the nipple versus pushing the bottle into the baby's mouth. True or false? So what we're talking about is that you have baby up in an upright position. We talked about the paced bottle feeding, but this question is true or false. It's best to kind of tickle the baby's nose or tickle the baby's mouth so the baby is taking in the bottle self-regulated versus pushing the bottle into the mouth. Okay, true or false? Let's see. Okay, true, true, true. All right, let's jump over to Facebook. True or false? True, true, true. All right, good job, mommies and families. All right, so it is true. Babies should self-regulate their intake and allow for them to tell us when they're full. Okay, so that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Great job listening and engaging. I love it. I love it. So we are coming close to the end here of our time that we have together. So let's see, we have our blog that is live on our Spectre Baby USA website, and we did post that at 1 o'clock that the blog is live, so we'll make sure to put that link on there also. So our families that are on Instagram, don't forget, and on Facebook, don't forget to go to Spectre Baby USA live. All right, so I see some thumbs up. I love the engagement that we've had today. Thank you so much for being with us. I love the little fingers crossed and, you know, pick me, pick me. All right, so again, I love to see this. Okay. Can't wait to read the blog. Good. Yeah, I love it. So we have if you go to our Spectre Facebook page, you'll be able to see the link, and then you can also go to spectrebabyusa.com, and the blog is on there also, because this blog is talking about that if it's a Spectre mom that is talking about utilizing a preemie nipple throughout the baby's experience with using while she was away at work. Okay, so I love this. It says, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you so many to our other mommies and families that are engaging. So I missed your live session. Welcome back. Well, thank you. So, within, not next week, but the week after, I'll be sharing a lot of my personal story as I've been away from our Spectre families for a little bit. So thank you for that. Welcome back. Alrighty, so again, the winner will be chosen randomly, and we are anxiously awaiting to see who the winner is. Thank you for the encouragement. You're welcome. You're welcome. And again, if we did not get to your questions today, please know that we're here to support you and that we're not trying to ignore you by any sort of the imagination. What we're trying to do is to answer as many questions as we can and be as supportive as we can. So feel free on Instagram to direct message us, and make sure on are there any Facebook winners? So we're looking between Instagram and Facebook, okay? So let's see. All right, and the winner is on Instagram. All right, so at MEGEWIT is going to be our winner of the S9 today. Okay, so congratulations. Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much for all of our moms and families for joining us today. Please direct message us. Meg E. Witt on Instagram is going to be our winner of the S9. How exciting! How exciting! So congratulations. Yes, awesome. So make sure to direct message us, and we'll make sure to get it your way, okay? Thank you so much, all of you, for engaging. Yay, she says, I'm so excited. Congratulations. Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. All of our moms, our families, dads, caregivers, support workers, whoever, we are here to support you. So if there is anything that we did not answer, please let us know. We are here to support you. We're not ignoring you, we promise, okay? So we will see you next week, next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, we're always live on Instagram and Facebook, and stay tuned to find out when the next giveaway is going to be, because it's always random between Facebook and Instagram. We're going to be choosing a winner, okay? So it could be you next time. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week, guys. Thank you so much for being with us. All right, we'll see you soon.